there was one of the inevitable first, which is there's a publicly listed company called MicroStrategy. A gentleman, Mr. Saylor, decides that he's going to take, it looks like about 20% of his balance sheet, and he's going to move it from cash or US dollars into Bitcoin. But he's not doing it as what I think many would refer to as kind of a speculative, uninformed, gamble. Right. He basically clearly articulates concerns with the macroeconomy, with inflation, with the idea that cash is likely to drastically be devalued in the coming months and years. And so he is using this as a hedge, and literally at one point says, I'm going to use Bitcoin as a reserve asset. And so it's kind of a currency play more than it is like a speculative. I think, Bitcoin's going to drastically increase in value in the future or anything like that. What's your general take on kind of seeing this news?
Yeah, I mean, Plan B this has become kind of the Nostradamus of crypto lately, or the person we want to be the Nostradamus of crypto, I'll say, because we all want his model to come true. Actually predicted that at some point, Bitcoin will become an asset class beyond just digital gold, where it is actually used for these purposes. And it's fascinating to see that. Granted, a small cap company, but I would suspect it would start with a small cap company and not start with Apple Treasury, would embrace cryptocurrency as an inflation hedge, whether it's currency inflation or price inflation or both. And clearly now, first of all, let's be clear. This is a small cap company. He mentioned this I would say almost in passing in a quarterly report, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. Realized he was getting a shit ton of press by doing this, and is now taking advantage of that press. I'm not saying that that's a good thing or bad thing. He just is. That's what they're doing. But be that as it may, they're still doing it. And I think that sends an incredible message, because if you've got the cash, it's way easier to just sit on the cash, make 2%, 1.5%, whatever it is, if you've got a good treasury, and call it a day, right? Nobody's going to get fired for doing that. No one, right? You can get fired for basically putting money in Bitcoin on one of those 40 days where you put it in and it happens to go down. Now, if you've got a long-term perspective and you don't care, right now, the last 11 years, if history is a guide, say, okay, you've got a more than reasonable chance that in dollar terms, what you're investing is going to be worth more than what you put in. So anyway, we'll see where this goes, but it was almost inevitable. It's just fascinating to see how the first really interesting opportunity here with the Treasury embracing Bitcoin happened to come about. He's definitely milking it. I have no problem with that. But I think what's going to be more interesting to see, does anyone else follow suit? Does a company in the Fortune 1000 embrace a certain amount of crypto? Has it already happened and we don't know about it? They don't have to. I don't think they have to disclose to investors how they manage treasury, unless it's a meaningful percentage of their book. So I think what happens next is even more important. But this is fascinating, and my crypto Twitter has exploded in the last few hours. Everybody talking about this, and so like I said, what comes next? That's what I want to see.
Yeah, part of to me that is so interesting is. This isn't like a random company on this like obscure exchange in some foreign country. Right. This is an American company that's got a market cap over $1 billion. It's not like they took 1%, right? It's, it looks like 20%. It's $250 million, bought them about 22,000 Bitcoin, give or take. And it's traded on the NASDAQ. I think that when people first start thinking about this, it's kind of like governments, like the nefarious governments always do the weird stuff first, and then it becomes mainstream, right? Not saying that there's companies that are necessarily nefarious, but just the ones that are on the fringe usually do some of this stuff first. Right. This is a NASDAQ traded business that's $1 billion plus market cap, and the move was with hundreds of millions of dollars. Yeah. I think that ends up being just as important as it actually happening, right? It's kind of like who does it and when does it happen? Right. And at the start of kind of these bull markets, seeing something like this, you start looking around the room and you say, hey, what company, what size or what type of company, if they pursue this and they go ahead and do it, is the like Paul Tudor Jones moment where now all of a sudden the career risk is removed because, Apple did it, or, maybe it doesn't have to be that big of a company. Maybe it can be a $10 billion company, or, whatever it is. There's some level where the tipping point happens and people say, I no longer have career risk to do this because so-and-so did it. And I just don't know where that kind of barometer is.
Sure. But we've had these in the mid 90s, we were having discussions about the internet where we would have conversations like, well, nobody gets fired for, integrating with some conglomerate's EDI system for supply chain management, right? And most of your audience doesn't even know what the hell I just said. So my point is that there was a transition to the internet where it wasn't necessarily a safe bet because the internet was porn and gambling from 93 to 96 in most people's minds. And then all of a sudden it exploded and it was mainstream. And why the hell don't you have an internet strategy? And I think the time is coming where finance departments are going to need to have a crypto, Bitcoin, maybe DeFi strategy. I'm a little skeptical, but we'll see what happens, and so some variation on that with its own terminology that's going to unfold over the next 10 years is going to change corporate finance, right? Treasurers and others within the company are going to look at, collateralized lending in crypto for corporate growth. And it's a topic that didn't exist in traditional finance 5 years ago, right? So the whole lexicon, the strategies that enables, it's all going to change. And this is just a very, obviously buying and holding a small relative, even if it's 20% of your cash, in the grand scheme of things in the United States, it's a relatively small amount of money, but it still sends a message, right? The same way that the first company moved their supply chain onto the internet in 1997 sent a message.